I'm Adam Zorn, Program Manager for the University of Mount Union's Huston-Brumbaugh Nature Center. I'm at home today, and I'm going to provide a few activities and a lesson plan for some of you that also might be at home to learn a little bit more about seeds and germination. Spring is a great time to learn about seeds and the process of germination as our daytime temperatures begin to warm and the soil begins to warm up, and the soil also becomes inundated with water due to spring rain. Seeds of all kinds that were deposited across the landscape during the fall season, lie dormant during the winter, are now beginning to germinate and turn into the new plants that they are destined to become. Of course, each type of seed becomes its own unique type of plant. Those seeds are destined to be similar to their parents. So they will, in one shape or another, look just like a miniature version of the parent plant. So some common examples of seeds that you might be able to find in your backyard or in your neighborhood or in a local park are seeds from trees. A lot of trees drop their seeds in the fall, or wildlife and the wind disperse those seeds during the wintertime. And if they land in the right spot and they are given an opportunity to grow, they will do that at this time of the year. So one great example from my backyard are seeds from the oak tree. And we typically refer to those seeds as acorns. So I have an acorn here from my pin oak. And if this were to lay in my yard or to drop into my flower beds, this little acorn would germinate and turn into a very young oak tree. Now, we use the process of germination to our advantage at this time of the year. Many garden centers are creating bouquets, potted plants. They are planting in flats, and those seeds will become the plants that we can purchase and plant in our gardens and in our landscapes around our home. But you can do the same thing at home. You just need to know a little bit about the germination process and be a little curious and investigate, and that's what I'll help you do today. So what I hope you'll learn today is that a seed contains a new plant, and that seeds need certain conditions in order to grow. And those conditions, the quantities or the proportion of what is needed is not the same for every type of plant. And finally, seeds may not germinate. There is a chance that seeds of any kind, whether it's from a tree in your backyard or seeds that you buy from your local garden center, they simply may not germinate for one reason or another. Some of that is due to the environmental conditions that are provided. Sometimes it's something that's genetically wrong with the seed, or in many instances, like my acorn here, many of these do not germinate because they're eaten by wildlife. Squirrels love to eat acorns. Of course, it looks like a little insect made its way into this acorn here, as there's a hole near the top where the cap was attached. And a little insect probably made its way into there and ate the good stuff, which explains why the squirrels didn't pick this one up and carry it away. So, one really simple activity that you can do at home to explore germination is to dissect a seed. Okay? So, germination is the process in which a seed transforms into a plant. So, it is the growth process of a seed. And there are some important components of the seed that allow that process to take place. So the environmental conditions that are necessary for a seed to germinate are basically moisture and warm temperatures. Seeds do not need sunlight. Many seeds are oftentimes buried in the soil. If you plant seeds at home for a garden, you know that you have to put those seeds into the soil, or at least make contact with the soil. But depending on the type of seed, the size of the seed, they may need to be just lightly covered with a layer of soil, or they may need to be planted, an inch or so into the ground. Be that as it may, sunlight is not an important component for most seeds to germinate, but moisture and warm temperatures are. So, knowing that we need moisture and warm temperatures for seeds to germinate, that then begins to activate the germination process. Moisture will loosen up or soften the seed coat. The seed coat can oftentimes be the one protective layer on the outside of a seed. So for instance, like a bean seed has a seed coat. Once that seed falls out of the bean pod, the protection for the bean seed itself is just the thin little seed coat. And it takes a good deal of water to soften up that seed coat. And the water can then soak its way into the rest of the seed. Other seeds, like acorns, for instance, have sort of a hull or a shell on the outside of the seed coat. A peanut would be a great example of that. Also, a sunflower seed would be a great example of that. So I have sunflower seeds here, and there's obviously the shell on the outside of the seed, and then of course there is a seed coat on the inside when you eat the sunflowers. So once moisture works its way through the shell of the hull and the seed coat, it will then begin to allow the germination process to activate. So moisture causes the cotyledon, that's the meaty part of the seed, the part that we eat if it's a sunflower seed or a peanut, or in the case of an acorn, that's the really good stuff that's inside of the acorn that the squirrels like to eat. That begins to soften and swell, and it activates another portion of the seed, which is the germ or the embryo. And the germ or the embryo, whatever you prefer to call it, is the actual growing part of the plant. That's sort of like the little baby that's living inside of there. So if you look at an acorn, the little pointy tip on an acorn, that is where the germ is located. If you are looking at a sunflower seed, so when you open up a sunflower seed, the very pointy tip of the sunflower seed is the germ, and the fat end of the sunflower seed is are the cotyledons. That's the food for the little baby seed. And if you're looking at something like a corn kernel, the pointy tip of a corn kernel is also where the germ or embryo is located. And so that begins the process of germination when the embryo or the germ is activated into growing. And the root will be the first part that grows. The root can orient itself in the proper direction, so we know that seeds' roots will need to go down into the soil. Once the embryonic root has started, then the stalk and the first sort of baby leaves will begin to sprout from the germ, and they will obviously head in the opposite direction. They will go up out of the soil, and there will then be sort of the first semblance of what a plant looks like as it transforms from a seed to a plant. So you can see many of these parts of the seed by doing a simple seed dissection. If you don't have acorns in your backyard, that's fine. You actually have seeds around your home that you probably already have on hand. Something like peanuts are easy to dissect. Sunflower seeds are easy to dissect and investigate those parts, and you don't need any special equipment. Something like a toothpick or your hands with your fingernails to pull and pry those seeds apart and investigate the various parts. So peanuts are actually a really easy one. I know some people have peanut allergies, so this may not be easy for you to do, but peanuts are great because they split in half once you open the hull, and then you pick one of the little peanut seeds out of the hull, remove that papery seed coat, and you crack the peanut in half. Typically it splits in half really nice and neat, and again, one end of the peanut is going to be a little pointy, and if you break that open, that little germ or embryo will stay attached, and in many instances you'll actually see the embryonic leaves also attached to the kernel of the peanut. So I don't know if you can see that in there or not very easily, but that's my half of my peanut that has the little germ attached and the little embryonic seeds that are in there. Again, sunflower seeds are an easy one to dissect. So I had a sunflower seed. I got my bag of sunflower seeds here. You can also pull sunflower seeds out of your salad topping mix. If you feed birds at home, there's going to be sunflower seeds mixed into your bird seed at home as well. So if you pull your sunflower kernel out of the seed, you'll see the little papery seed coat that's on there, and you can pull that off, and you'll see that you've got your kernel with the little tiny pointy seed on the end there. And so that's the germ or the embryo there on the tip of the sunflower seed. And you can actually carefully split the cotyledon in half, and you'll be able to split that in half And if you look closely, you'll see the germ or the embryo sandwiched in between the cotyledons a little easier. Another thing you may have on hand are beans. So you could try large beans like lima beans. Even lima beans in a can, if you're careful with them, you can open and split them in half. The large part of the lima bean is the cotyledon. That's the part that we eat for food and nutrition. But they will also have the germ, the embryo, inside of there, and potentially even be able to see parts of an embryonic root or the embryonic leaves that are inside of there. If you had dry beans, so if you have dry beans like pinto beans, black beans, any kind of beans that are dry at home, if you rehydrate them, they make actually really easy specimens to dissect. You put a couple in a jar of water, or a cup of water. Warm water works really well. Soften them up. Once they're soft, you can pull the seed coat off really easily. They split in half, nice and easy. And their parts are actually quite easy to see as well. So in this one here, this is actually a green bean seed. These are seeds that I'm planting in my garden later on this spring. I put one in water and I dissected it. And there you can see the little embryonic root on that one. Alright, so seed dissection, a super easy way to investigate some of those different parts of a seed that are important in the germination process. Now another fun activity that you can do to actually view germination is to grow a seed in a bag. I call this a bean in a bag because beans are really easy to grow in a bag. So you would need to get some sort of seeds either from your local hardware store, or you can order them online if you're not going to stores at this time. A lot of seed companies that sell vegetable and flower seeds by mail order. They're really easy to get a hold of. They're relatively inexpensive, and of course you can plant those outside of your home later on this spring when the weather warms up. So an easy way to view the germination process is to grow it in a clear container. And you don't need a fancy clear container. You can use a sandwich bag, one of these Ziploc type sandwich bags, and you'll need a paper towel, and you're going to need some tape. It's really all you need, in addition to your seeds. So what you'll do is you'll take a piece of paper towel or a napkin, and you want to fold it so that it'll fit neatly inside of your sandwich bag. And you want to make sure the paper towel is nice and moist, damp, not sopping wet. So you can run it through the faucet at home, get it wet, and then wring it out, and then neatly place it inside of a sandwich bag. Then you'll take whatever seed you want. Large seeds work best, so green beans, snap peas, corn kernels. What else? You could try other types of seeds, like if you want to plant pumpkins or watermelons or cucumbers, you can put one of those in a bag, or you can try multiple varieties. And so, in fact, that's what I did here. So let me show you what it looks like. Here we've got, this is a snap pea that I put in a bag. And so there's the little seed, and it's already started to germinate. It's been hanging in my window for not quite a week. It actually happens pretty quickly. But that's what it'll look like. And maybe you want to label it like I've done here, especially if you're doing multiple varieties. And so that's all you got to do. Ziploc bag or Ziploc type bag, a wet paper towel inside, place your seed against the wet paper towel, seal up the bag, try to get the air out of it so that your seed stays in direct contact with that moist paper towel pressed up against the inside of the bag. And then you're going to use some tape and you're just going to stick it on a window. And once you stick it up on the window, you just leave it there. I would pick a window maybe on the south side of your house where it's going to get some sunlight during the day. I know this is not really on a window, but you get the point. You just stick it to a glass window. And you can check on it every few days and see how long it takes for your seed to germinate. Once it starts to germinate, you'll notice that the root comes out first. And once the root moves along in its development, eventually the shoot with the new set of embryonic leaves will begin to appear as well. So let me show you sort of a few samples in progress. So here is a green bean that I started in a bag. So you can see the embryonic root right there sticking out of the bean. So if I were to put that back in the bag, it would continue to develop, and I would expect to see the stem emerging from between the cotyledons in the next couple of days. I tried a sweet corn. So this is a kernel of sweet corn from a pack that I bought, and I'm holding the embryonic root. Actually, it's quite large now, and you might be able to see the stalk beginning to form there as well. So we got the root headed down and the stalk of the corn plant beginning to sprout and go up. And now my daughter did this a couple of weeks ago. She's at home now, like a lot of other school children are. So she started some peas in a bag, and hers is about 2 weeks old. So her sample here is quite far along, and she has multiple roots coming from her snap pea, and you can see the stalk with the sets of leaves that have already begun to develop. So hers are well on their way to looking like a real snap pea plant. Okay, so as you let these things develop in your bag, some fun things to do is you can sort of track maybe how many days it takes for the seed coat to crack open. Especially on a bean plant, it's really easy to see that. How long it takes for the embryonic root to appear, maybe how long it takes then for the stem to appear, and then finally, how long does it take before you see the first true leaves appear on the stalk as the germination process continues. When you do see the first true leaves appear from your seed during the germination process, at that point you should open up the bag, crack the bag open a little bit, let some air into there, because you know those leaves, they need to photosynthesize, and the process of photosynthesis involves needing air. They're not going to get a lot of air in a sealed bag, so they'll have the moisture they need, and they'll have the warmth that they need, because the bag functions like a little greenhouse, but you'll have to open up the bag and provide some fresh air for them. And because the bag's open, you'll have to pay attention to how much moisture is in there. So you might have to add a little bit of water to the paper towel every day. But once your seed reaches to a certain point, especially when you start to see true leaves, once it looks maybe sturdy and strong enough, you can actually transplant your seed from the bag into a container with soil. And you can start to grow your own plants either in a pot, or you can temporarily grow them in that pot or any kind of container with soil until conditions improve and you can get outside and plant them outside. So not only is this a great lesson to learn about seed parts and germination, but then you can also easily transition that into gardening, making some easy and healthy foods for yourself at home, whether it's a couple of green bean plants or a snap pea, or if you want to go all out and plant a full-on garden somewhere around your home or in containers around your home as well. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed today's lesson. These are things that are easily replicated at home with just a handful of simple materials. Maybe the one thing you might have to search out or look for or purchase might be some seed samples. This video will also be accompanied by a sort of a short lesson plan. So if you're interested in seeing a list of materials that you're going to need and some written out instructions, basic written instructions, I'll make sure I provide that. For those of you who are working with your kids at home and trying to keep them active and productive with their learning while they're at home at this time, I've also listed some of the Ohio Learning Standards for Science on here that this activity will qualify for. So specifically, this activity is great for kindergarten, first, second, and third grade. And so I've mentioned the specific standards within each grade level that this activity will meet. So if you're looking for science activities for your students, for your kids at home, this is something that will fit within our learning standards here in Ohio. Okay, if you have any questions, feel free to contact me at the Nature Center. I'm still available by phone and email, and you can also leave your comments below